In this video, I'm going to share with you 7 signs that you might be financially unstable. So if you're someone that isn't where they want to be financially, then you want to pay attention to one of these signs, as this may be the reason for this. Hey, what's up everyone? Ralph here. So when it comes to building wealth, I learned that it requires a certain level of discipline. It requires like having certain habits. And I think for a lot of people, they aren't aware of why they aren't where they want to be financially, or when they're trying to build wealth. They hear about building wealth all the time, but they can't figure out why they're not able to build wealth the way they want to, and why others are able to build wealth at a much faster pace. But it's because sometimes you're not aware of the things that are causing you to not to build wealth. It's certain things that even myself, when I struggled financially and I was in debt, like I knew like some of the things I was doing was wrong, but for some reason it wasn't clicking in my mind that I was taking on certain habits that was stopping me from building wealth the way I want to. Like I know I wanted to be wealthy, I know I wanted to make money, but I was not taking the necessary steps in order to get to that point. And sometimes it takes a certain level of awareness, and just sometimes a level of learning and understanding, like, okay, some of the things that I'm doing, these specific things that I'm doing are causing me, are prohibiting me from building the wealth the way I want to. So in this video, I'm just going to go over some of these signs, and maybe they can bring that attention to you, and maybe you can and bring some awareness, and then help you when it comes to like helping you develop better habits when it comes to building wealth. So for me, one of the first signs that I've learned that that stopped me, and I hear this from a lot of people. They talk about this a lot, and then when I hear this now, it's just like, no, that's not how it works. So that first sign that people talk about is using credit cards as an emergency fund, right? And you hear this a lot with a lot of people, like people that don't know how to use credit cards. You ask them why they have a credit card. Obviously, sometimes you'll get a lot of people saying, oh, because like just in case there's an emergency. And in my head, I'm like, nah, a credit card is not meant for use as an emergency. It's used as a tool, right? And then people use it as a tool as protection. Like people that understand when it comes to using credit cards, they rather use that. Rather use a credit card instead of the debit card. But for people that don't understand money, they say, oh, I use a credit card just in case an emergency. When in reality, no, you need an emergency fund when there's an emergency. And I read an article on CNBC. It says that almost 60% of Americans wouldn't be able to cover $1,000 emergency if one happened. And that's crazy, right? If you think about that, like if there was an $1,000 emergency, most people, almost 60% of people wouldn't have the funds to cover that emergency, whether it's, maybe something happened with your car, or maybe it was a medical emergency. They wouldn't be able to cover that. And I think for a lot of people, that's something that should concern many people. So if you're someone that has the mentality that, you know what, like I need this credit card, like say something, if I get a flat tire or something happened with my car, yeah, I need this credit card, then you're clearly using a credit card for the wrong reason. Because if you do not have the cash in your bank account to cover that emergency, then you shouldn't be using the credit card, period. You should be working on building that emergency fund. Obviously, the recommended is 3 to 6 months, but obviously you want to start off with, with anything. If you can start off building it up, and start off like building up to $1,000 at first, and then build up to that 3 to 6 months, then obviously that's where you want to start. So yeah, if you did a first sign, a big sign that shows that you're finding unstable is that if you figure that using your credit card is there for an emergency, use that as an emergency fund instead of actually building out your emergency fund, right? So the second thing is you have at least one maxed out credit card. Now I know this from experience. I was the king of maxing out credit cards. I thought I was so good with money. I was like, all right, I got this one credit card is maxed out. I can figure out another way and figure out how to set myself up where I can manipulate money and try to change money so I can have more money available. And then I would just get another credit card and eventually max that out. So if you're someone that has already at least one or multiple credit cards maxed out, and clearly that's a sign that you don't have your stuff together when it comes to your finances. Because obviously if you have one maxed out credit card, then eventually that's going to lead to 2, and then 3, and eventually, you know what, you're going to be getting collectors calling you, and you're going to either have to file for bankruptcy, or you're going to be sent to collections where they're going to be coming at, like bill collectors going to be calling your phone asking for payments. So if you're someone that's maxing out credit cards, and you have at least one maxed out credit card, then you should first, obviously you should be stop using your credit cards, because you need to make sure you clear that first credit card out. But you don't want to go down that path of just collecting more credit cards and maxing them out, just getting deeper and deeper into financial trouble. Now, the third sign that shows that you might be financially unstable is after all your bills are paid, you're broke. Right now, the way you want to work, the way this works is if you're someone that's working, if you got income coming in, and obviously we all have expenses. It's important that after all your bills are paid, whatever is left after your bills are paid, you want to make sure you're saving or investing that. But for a lot of people, they don't even have that. Either they're expending more than they make and they don't have nothing left over, or maybe they have a little bit of savings. They have a little bit left over where they can't even spend or save. So if you're someone that's after all your bills are paid, you're still broke, then clearly it shows that's a sign of instability, right? You want to make sure that obviously going over all your expenses, you want to make sure you're reducing the expenses, making sure that there's anything that doesn't need to be, any expense that doesn't need to be spent, you want to make sure you remove that, right? Like unnecessary bills or you got subscriptions that you're not even using. You want to make sure you get rid of that, right? So you want to make sure you're reducing your expenses to a point where you want to increase your savings, where you can take that money and save, and you can take whatever's left and you can save or invest whatever, as much as you can, because that's important. That's the key to like building wealth. After all your bills are paid, whatever's left off, you want to make sure you're saving and investing. So if you're someone that's after all your bills are paid, you're still broke, then clearly that's a sign that you're financially you're unstable. Now, the fourth sign that shows that you're financially unstable is the fact that if you're someone that's borrowing money from friends and family, right? And now we all know people like this. We all have friends and family that probably engage in this type of behavior, and obviously as a family member or a friend, you want to help that person. But if it gets to a point where it's constantly being done, then it gets to a point where like, okay, you know what, I'm enabling this person with bad financial behavior. I'm showing this person that if there's any financial situation, that I can bail this person out. But you want that, if you're someone that's doing that, this is an easy way to to break up relationships with your friends or the family, because you don't want to be a burden to that person, because that person has bills they have to pay. They have a family that they need to take care of. They have financial responsibilities, and they're doing that, and they've created a hopefully they're doing well financially, where they can make sure they're maintaining that and they've earned that, or maybe they're struggling financially and now they have to take on the burden of helping you, and that's not fair to them. So if you're someone that's constantly borrowing money from friends and family, it's only a matter of time where you start to become a burden to that person, and you can obviously then you have there's a possibility of destroying that relationship. You don't want to get to that point. You want to make sure you're good financially, where you don't have to be a burden on anyone else. The fifth sign that shows that you're financially unstable is the fact that you avoid talking about money with others, whether it's someone, friends and family, your spouse. I think for me, I think this is very important, because I understand that it's taboo to talk about money, because I think for a lot of people, they aren't doing well financially, so it's hard to really talk about something that you don't have a lot of confidence in, and that's a very personal matter for touchy subject for a lot of people, because it's an embarrassment. You don't want to let people know that you're struggling financially, because it's very personal. It's very to a point where it can be an embarrassment for a lot of people, because they don't want to seem like they're not doing well. But I think for a lot of people that it's important to have discussions with other people when it comes to money, because if you're talking about wealthy people, all wealthy people do is talk about money or ways to make more money. And I think it's important to like engage with other people that that align with your way of thinking, because it brings out different ideas. Even if you're struggling financially, if you're someone that's in debt, it's important to talk to other people about that you trust, because they can find ways to maybe give you tips or help share some thoughts and help bring some stability in your life. So obviously you want to get around the right people, and you want to get with other people that are also that have it together financially. But I think it's important to discuss with other people, because it helps bring different ideas. It might, you know, something might click. Somebody might say something that clicks in your brain like, oh, I never thought of it that way. And I think if we engage more in different conversations and you know, and talking and working through some of the issues, I think a lot of people do better financially. And like, I get it, I understand that it's embarrassing. Like you don't want people understand, you know, saying your situation. But I think it's important to come up with different ideas on how to overcome certain situations, because I think when you talk amongst people that obviously you trust and you feel safe around, then you can get to a point where you can improve and progress and become a better person when it comes to your finances. Now, the sixth sign that shows that you're probably doing that you're financially unstable is the fact that you think debt consolidation is the solution to your problem. Now, if used correctly, if you're someone that's like, you know what, very serious about getting over their financial situation, then debt consolidation can be a definite solution, right? But for a lot of people, they use it as a tool to just get in more debt, right? If you're someone that has a bunch of credit card, has a bunch of debt, you're like, oh, let me consolidate all this debt and move it to one spot where I can organize it. And then what happens is then you take on more debt somewhere else. And obviously, if you're that person, then that's not a solution. That's just going to be a bigger hole where you're going to be digging for yourself to get into more debt. So if you're someone that says, you know what, all right, I'm in, you think you think you're smart when it comes to how you manage debt. Like, you know what, oh, I can maneuver and manipulate certain debts where I can get a credit card and put it all on one balance and get that, and then create more debt. Then you're just obviously going to find yourself in a deeper situation. And I used to be that person, because I thought I was very smart in how I managed money, but all I was doing is just creating more debt for myself. And then eventually it catches up to you, and you find yourself being called by debt collectors, and you're not having the money, and then you're being sued and stuff like that. So I think if you're someone that's using debt consolidation as a way to solve your problem, then obviously that's a huge sign for that you're financially unstable. Now, the last one, number 7, is that you think late fees and overdraft fees are normal to you. If you're someone that looks at your bank statement and all you see is late fees and overdraft fees, and it's normal to you, like it's nothing, it's just the way, it's just part of the game, then clearly that's a sign that you're financially unstable, because you're just basically giving money to the bank, and it shows also a sign that you just don't have the money. So obviously, if you're looking at your bank statement and you just see nothing but fees, that's something you need to clean up, because that's just money you're just going over to the bank, and that's just taking money away from you. So obviously, when you look at that statement and you see nothing but bank fees, you want to make sure you get to a point where you're keeping money in that account where you're not having to just fork over your money to a bank. So those are the 7 signs that shows that you may be unstable. So if any of these signs apply to you, then obviously you want to make sure you get that corrected, right? It's important, right? Because building wealth is about developing good habits. It's about being consistent. It's about being disciplined. And sometimes it takes a while to really get that. Like even for me, like I learned it took a while for me to really understand that, and it took me like playing a board game to just for the light bulb to go off. And for different people, people figure it out at different points in their time in their life, and sometimes it just clicks. So I think hopefully this one of these signs, like it clicks for you, and then you figure it out as well. So if you got any comments or questions, make sure to leave it down below, hit the like button, share, and if you haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe. All right, so you guys take care and have a good one. Later.